Hello everyone and welcome to the Jesika Zivuku YouTube channel. So I'm here with my mom, Jesika Zivuku, the author of the book and memoir, Shooting Through Concrete Walls. And today we are going to be unpacking this book bit by bit. And today is the first episode of this unpacking. So if you are interested in that, please stay tuned. So we're going to start from the beginning of the book, from the very first chapter. And if you open the book, you will see that the chapter itself, the beginning of the book has a chapter called A Turbulent Start. So already you can tell that there's a lot going on, when a plane experiences turbulence. It means a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot. It means there's wind coming against the wings of the plane. There's a lot going on. There's instability, there's anxiety, there's fear. Yeah. So let's get into the nitty-gritties of exactly what the turbulent start was. I'm just going to start by reading a paragraph, the very first paragraph that you wrote. Chapter 1, A Turbulent Start. A brief escape. I was born during the height of the Liberation War, behind the door of a round mud hut in rural Zimbabwe. My mother's elder sister and sister wife, both being married to the same man, was a midwife. Wow. Okay. I know about this, but when I read it out loud, it's quite interesting, eh? Okay. 3 years after my birth, my father faced his untimely death when he was fatally shot cold blood by Rhodesian soldiers. I said we did not hold any memories of my father-daughter experiences with him. My father passing left all 14 of us, his children, fatherless, his 2 wives widowed, of which one, my mother, was heavily pregnant with 3 weeks left to deliver my brother, the last born in mourning. Whew. It's just the first paragraph, but there's already a lot going on. So take us through your experience, your early memories from the moment you stepped onto this earth.
As you just read out, it was indeed a turbulent start, like we were saying. Imagine a plane taking off during a storm, during heavy winds, all that instability. So that paragraph had to be at the beginning of my story, because that was the beginning of my life. Mm-hmm. And the setting itself, first of all,
in a round mud hut.
Yes.
That's where you were born.
In a hut.
Not a hospital. Because people nowadays, they just think there's no way. You know?
Yeah, so I wasn't born in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in a hut. There were no nurses. My mother, who was married together with her sister to the same husband.
Your father?
My father.
My grandfather.
Yes. My mom's midwife was her sister.
Wow.
So my mother was assisted by her sister, who was her midwife.
Wow.
So you can already see that possibly there was no sanitized equipment.
There was no medication at all. I can't imagine them having reserved any medication, because this is in the rural areas, right?
Yes.
There's no electricity. Water is probably fetched from the well to wash off whatever needs washing.
Mm-hmm. So all the equipment that you would originally or normally get in a hospital wasn't there.
Not there.
Yeah. So that is how I was introduced in the world.
Wow.
And the other thing, it was during the Liberation War. Yeah, the Zimbabwean Rhodesian War.
Yeah.
So it was, I can imagine maybe they were even worried that the soldiers can just
Could
appear
oh yes, because
any
back
minute.
then the soldiers would actually come to the houses
and call them out to go somewhere for a meeting, or even just
or
maybe,
recruit some of the men or boys
yes,
to come and fight in the
yes,
war.
or even if they thought there was a sellout in the village, they would just come and harass you people and say,
Yeah.
please tell us who.
Yeah.
So any minute you just needed to be on your toes, ready to run away
Whoa.
for safety, you know.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of setup that maybe as she was giving birth to me, she was even worried that I hope the soldiers don't come.
I
to our
can
hostel.
imagine. Did they even have time to be anxious, like, you know, how people get anxious, or they just had to be like soldiers themselves?
They
as
had
well?
to be soldiers.
Hearts of a soldier.
But I just remember one time my mom used to tell me that if I was having dinner and I was not pacing myself fast enough, she'd be like, you were fortunate that you didn't grow up, because obviously I was born during that time, but I was young. But then the later part of my life, the war had ended. But she's like, you were fortunate that you didn't really grow up during that time where you needed to be on your toes as you eat.
Oh, God.
If people serve you food, you need to quickly eat, because you don't know when the call for you to run away will come. So any minute you might even leave your food and run to safety in the mountains or any place of safety.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was an unstable environment. People were fearful all the time. So this is the kind of environment where I was born.
Wow.
And as you then later read, 3 years after my birth, my dad was killed.
And back then, the man of the house, the head of the house, was a significant role, because women could not do much for themselves, to fend for themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah. So 3 years later, my father was killed. And at that time, I was number 14 out of 15.
Out of 15 children.
Yeah.
Between the two
moms.
Mhm.
So I had two moms, because my mom and her sister were married to the same husband. So it was elder mom, younger mom, and we didn't call it auntie. It was like my elder mom, my younger mom.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all mothers. They were both mothers. So I was then number 14.
Wow.
And then by the time my father died, my mom was heavily pregnant with my younger brother.
Oh,
And eventually,
my uncle,
yeah, and then gave birth a few months after my dad died. So
Wow.
imagine 1 minute you have 14 kids in the household, your husband dies, it's during the war, you're expecting your 15th child, the man of the house is no longer there. So you're celebrating the birth of your child, but you're mourning the death of your husband. So this
That
is the
must
kind
have
of,
been tough, because women back then could not have the same privileges or the affordability to do whatever they could to earn money. They did not really go to work like how the males used to go to work in other towns or whatever to earn a living.
Yeah.
And now there are two mothers left to fend for 14 children. How was that dynamic?
yeah. So thankfully for peasant farming,
Yeah.
they were peasant farmers. That's how
Wow.
they just managed to farm, fend the cattle,
And-
grow some
and-
mealies here and there.
You know, nowadays people think without groceries they cannot do anything, but back then people used to survive from just their farm.
And maybe I was also quite fortunate during that time, because remember, being number 14 and having 13 elder brothers and sisters also meant that some of my siblings who were older had already started working.
Oh, that's great.
So by the time my dad died, 2 or 3 of my elder sisters were already working. But imagine
But
3
imagine
sisters.
the black text. I know that there's always the black text topic, and people
Yeah.
are talking about, you know, I have 3 siblings, but imagine being the firstborn and you have 13 more siblings or 14 more siblings behind you to take care of.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
much of a weight that must be on one's shoulders. you
Yeah,
know?
I believe it was a lot of responsibility, especially for my elder sister. Sadly, she passed on a few years back, but she played a huge role in helping uplift the family. She really played a huge role.
So I also know from, you know, how it kind of like became the family dynamic, that whoever made it would help the one
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah. So the story goes that my father who was staying, he was a builder, so he used to build in the nearby town, which was Chirezi. So he used to be a builder. So him having a lot of kids, and his firstborn, secondborn, and thirdborn being girls. Remember, this was a patriarchal environment, society. That time, sending a girl child to school was unheard of.
Yeah.
So even for my father, fortunately for us, we thank God, he believed in education. So he sent my elder sister to school.
Imagine, and she's the one that then
ended up looking after number 2, number 3, and then when number 2, number 3 were done with school, they then also helped look after the rest of us. So we grew up technically being raised by siblings. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. My brothers and sisters sent us all to school. My 2 mothers farming on the sides. When they managed to sell their millies or cows and help to maybe augment the school fees, they would. But
that definitely meant you couldn't afford the luxuries of life. You just had to get the necessities
Basics.
to go to the next level.
Yeah. We were fortunate in the environment because the environment was obviously, compared to the rest of the surrounding families, they looked at us and thought we were better off. But our situation wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
Wasn't comfortable.
Wow.
So the basics were what we could at least get. Yeah.
Can you take us through your day to day when you were still young? I know that you then moved from your rural staying with your mother, but take us through what life was when you were still young and you were still living with your mother.
What I can actually remember is when I was 5. I don't remember before then. I only remember when I was 5, but when I was already 5, I wasn't staying with my mom. I was already staying with my elder brother in a town called Bay Bridge. So the first memories that I can remember is him taking us to the rural areas for holidays, but we'll then come back, and then we were staying in a town called Bay Bridge, which is on the southern side of the country and bordering South Africa.
Yes.
So my brother was working there, and he was married and had a daughter. So he raised me together with his daughter. So I remember when I was 5 going to crash in Bay Bridge. And one significant incident that I remember is, and I talk about it in the book, as we were at crash and we were supposed to be immunized, and the crash was just next to the crash was just supposed to be.
This story, yeah.
The crash was just next to the clinic, so all the kids at crash were taken to the clinic next door for immunization. So here I am, standing next in line, waiting for my turn so that I get the injection administered, and I'm looking at this nurse dressed in white. Those days the nurses used to have these little things up in their on their head, white uniforms. This nurse is fixing the injection. You know how they used to push up the syringe and
liquid.
Yeah, obviously they would pull the liquid and then push it up a little bit into a spray and then heat it a little bit. I don't know if you remember an incident like that. So, but this, I don't know whether it was because I was young or maybe the needle was actually big. But from where I was looking, the needle was like humongous in my eyes. It was humongous. So I'm looking at this child who's just in front of me waiting for his turn. Now he's being injected and he goes on. I'm not sure if it was the buttocks or the hand, but I just remember that he walked away crying, and I'm like, I'm next in line, and I can't have that thing being it was unimaginable. So before I knew it, I was darting for the door, running for my life. I was like, I am not waiting. So these are the funny things that I remember besides, But yeah, obviously I was young. I tried to race out of the perimeter of the clinic.
Yeah.
Ran, dashing to the gate. There was an uphill, incline. So
I can imagine your little feet.
5 years old.
Trying to escape.
Yeah, so these 2 nurses just took chase behind me. Before I could
get away.
What
I like about that story is you tried.
Yeah.
You fought. Even though they ended up catching you.
Yeah.
You fought.
Yeah.
That's where that resilience was starting to come through already.
Possibly.
At 5 years old.
Possibly. Yeah. When I was looking back, I was like, really? Did I run away? Did I try to escape? What were the odds of me succeeding? Maybe but I tried. I'm glad that I tried. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Regardless of whether I was going to succeed, the important thing is I tried.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, what an insightful story indeed, and very interesting how you were actually fighting for your life.
Fighting for
and
dear life.
the fact that you thought you could escape,
Yeah.
and you knew that you were up against two grown individuals.
Yeah, at that moment.
And you saw the way out. You saw the gate. You decided to run for the gate, the way out.
But at that time, it didn't really matter how much older than me they were. It didn't matter how big they were in stature compared to my little 5-year-old self. I'm not happy about the situation. I'm not going to wait for this painful thing to go into my skin. This is an uncomfortable thing. I don't want it. I'm out of here.
You can already tell from a young age that you were very resilient and you were very goal-oriented. You were already someone who knew how to find a way out. So this resilience that we then see throughout the book was already showing from a very tender age. Do you think that was inborn, or it can be developed even for those people that are like, well, I'm not like that? Maybe people can be like, oh, you were born like that. But do you think that's something that can be developed in other people that are naturally not people that wait to be rescued? Because there are a lot of people that stay in difficult situations waiting for someone to rescue them. But life is for, the ones that know how to survive sometimes, So what do you think? Do you think other people can also learn to have such characteristics in life?
Okay, interesting question. Well, I'm trying to even understand whether I was born resilient or whether I adopted that resilience based on the environment that I was. Remember, being born 14 out of 15, what are the chances of being noticed?
You have to have tough skin, eh?
What are the chances
you're
that
not
you're
even
going to stand
a
out?
middle child. You're like, you're not the last child either.
I'm not the last child, because last kids, they get the attention. Oh, this is my last one. So they get the attention. The first child gets the attention. Oh, this is the first one.
Then,
so you're just a number in between.
Males would get more attention than females.
Yes, remember?
So you were just,
Remember, we are in a patriarchal society, so the men get the recognition.
Yes.
I'm somewhere in between. I'm at a position in terms of,
from last.
so there's a chance that I probably am not even noticed. There is a chance. I'm not saying that I wasn't noticed, but there was a chance I wasn't. I might not have been noticed. So maybe I needed to fight for anything. I needed to fight to be recognized.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I was born resilient or I developed the resilience because of
as
the
a child,
surrounding.
you actually do develop these things. Children learn very quickly.
You adapt.
They adapt
You
quickly.
adapt. Yes. So I thank God that I was blessed to the point that I developed the resilience and the ability to stand out and the ability to just, I don't like the situation, so I'm gonna get out of it. But to answer the other question that you raised, I also feel that for even people that are not intrinsically fighters, they can be nurtured. That spirit, that attitude can be nurtured. It can be cultivated with the right tools, with the right environment, with the right mindset. A person can learn. So it's just a matter of realizing that I'm in a situation that I'm not comfortable with, but I don't want to stay here.
Yeah.
What can I do to get out? So either you can do things for yourself, but if you can't, then reach out, identify other people around you who can help you to get out of that and leverage on their strengths.
Yes.
So some people are born intrinsically resourceful, fighters. Some people are not, but then they have to then partner, look for synergies, look for other people to help. So even for people that are not, it can be developed.
Yeah. Wow, I completely agree, and I'm sure if you are one person that is watching and sitting and thinking, well, but I can't go through life always fighting, or I don't have the strength for this. Things will never change for you if you do not make the change. So either way, you're gonna have to push through. So I like the advice that you're giving, that sometimes you don't have to do it alone. You can actually find your community, find your people that are pillars of strength to you that can help you to overcome, because there is strength in numbers.
There is strength in numbers. Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned is that when you were now 5 years old, you moved to stay with your brother, and you then started attending school in Baitbridge, right? Please take us through your experience at this school, because I read through it. You spoke about being at a formerly all-white school. So please take us through your experience in your first primary school.
So after this experience at creche, the following year I then went to primary school, started grade 1. And remember, it was soon after independence in Zimbabwe, having just come out of a period where the country had been colonized. So most schools that had originally been all white were now being opened up to blacks. So when I then joined the school, blacks were a minority. And that school had an all English rule. Nobody was allowed to speak in any other language, any vernacular language, except English. But mind you, the creche that I had been at the previous year, our main languages there was isiNdebele. So we used to learn isiNdebele, but I'm Shona from home. So at home we're speaking Shona, at school we are learning isiNdebele. We hardly speaking English, so my English was not that good.
Wow.
And suddenly I'm now thrown into this environment where no Ndebele is allowed, no Shona is allowed. You only communicate in English, and I'm only in grade 1.
Whoa.
So it was difficult.
Well,
Communication.
I can imagine as a young child, you know, how did that feel to just not being able to express yourself, like not being able to feel at home, because I'm sure language is all that it defines, it makes you feel like you're at home, you have your people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It must have felt very foreign.
Yeah, it was actually very limiting, because the other interesting part that I need to highlight is not only was the school an only English school, the rule was such that while you were not allowed to speak in Shona, Ndebele, or any other language apart from English, during class or even outside during break time, during, you know, when you're just mingling with others at the sports ground, if you are found speaking in any other language apart from English, prefects and any other people of authority who are monitoring or walking around, if they find you, they'll jot your name down in like a jotter or notebook or a punishment book. And for every Friday, everybody who was caught speaking in another language would go for caning. So we used to actually go and get caning in our hands or in our bags.
And
on Fridays at the headmaster's office.
were you frequently
Grade 1.
there?
The first few days, yes, remember, I'm an extrovert, so keeping quiet or speaking in English. I can speak English, but I can't keep quiet. So,
So were you communicating to some of the kids in your vernacular?
so remember with your aunt, I was in the same class.
Oh.
Remember, I grew up with my brother's daughter, so when I was going to go to grade 1, she was supposed to remain at creche, but she cried, so she then was allowed to come to school with me. So we were in the same class.
Okay.
So we'd walk from home and go to school. We're speaking in Shona. When we get to the school, the moment we get into the gate, we are no longer allowed to speak in Shona. But we've come from the same house. We were talking. So now sometimes we'd whisper, sometimes we'd say a bit of Shona,
Yes.
and we'd get caught. So the first couple of weeks, we were frequently at the headmaster's office.
And how
Until
long?
a time where we were like starting to develop our own gibberish language and joking about it and laughing and maybe making sign language, or sometimes even keeping quiet, because the caning was not easy. It was difficult. The headmaster made sure he beat you up.
And as a grade 1,
And so imagine being a grade 1 and you can't talk.
you're probably 6 to 7 years old.
Yeah. And you can't talk. You're just quiet because you're scared that if I get caught, I'm going to be punished. So it was really stifling. It was very limiting. And the only freedom was when you get out of the school grounds. The moment you step out of the school fence, freedom. It's now freedom for us.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite limiting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you think that shaped you? That experience shaped you, or how were you able to overcome it? Because this book is about shooting through, right?
Yeah.
All of these difficult experiences that, you know, someone could have stopped being an extrovert.
Mhm.
Someone's character would have changed from then, like, and then years later, people wonder what happened to that person, you know, because a lot of people then, they go inwards, you know, instead of coming outwards and fighting and saying,
Sure.
okay, I'm not going to let this define me or limit me. They are like silenced for good.
Yeah.
But here you are.
You're right.
know.
You actually are touching on a very valid point. There was a person I was talking to then also mentioned that, because as I was talking to her, I found out she's an introvert. Well, I thought she was an introvert. She's like, I was not like this when I was growing up. This is something that I started practicing because I was trying to adapt. I was in an environment where I wasn't happy. Then I thought, okay, maybe if I keep quiet. So I withdrew into a shell as a way of adjusting. So instead of just being vocal and saying, I don't like this, what do I do? The person decided to withdraw. So you are right that some people are placed in an environment. Some people blossom, some people, retrieve or withdraw.
Yeah.
Some people withdraw. So people respond differently. But to your point, for me, I actually don't remember I was young, but what I know is even up to now, you place me in an environment where I'm not happy. You place me in an environment where things are not working the way I want. I'm like, what can I change about this? What can I do to change this environment so that it works for me? So most of the time I find myself figuring out whether I have an alternative to walk out of this situation. And in this case, where language was something that was punishable, if I can't speak English, I'm punished for it, I then realized, so the only way to avoid this punishment is for me to be able to speak this language fluently. So I practiced.
Isn't this a full circle moment that now you are writing a whole book? You're an author of a whole book in English.
Yeah, from a moment where you don't know how to speak the language and you're even punished for it.
And you understand how your resilience has led to this. Because back then you could have hated English. Other people do that. They hate the very thing where if they push through it can help them to acquire more or lead them to a greater breakthrough like this, But you are now, you now have a testimony to what pushing through at that level has led you to being an author. You are now like someone who is a guru in English. You must read for yourself and find out for yourself. She captured her experiences in a very, relatable yet very artistic way. I mean, just purchase the book for you to find out for yourself.
Thank you, honey. Thanks, honey.
So it's just another example, like this was a very defining moment for someone. It can be something that silences them forever, but look at her now flourishing with this English, going places with the same English. So yeah.
The very thing that I initially had been punished for.
Yeah,
it's the very thing that now I'm using.
Young age. At a very young, it's almost like as if it was either meant to make you fly or destroy you.
Yeah.
Steal all of this from you.
Yeah.
Because how many other opportunities did you gain from just being eloquent in English? Even in other schools that you went after that, you were able to stand out because of your ability to write, your ability to speak. So you know what? If you were going through something and you were thinking that you're gonna give up on it just because it's hard, think twice, because there's probably breakthrough on the other side of that thing.
True. And use that very thing that looks like a limitation.
To
turn it around.
You to fly.
Use it as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Use it as the launching pad for you to launch further.
So one of the topics we do need to touch on is when now you were applying for your university degree. Take us through the discouragement you faced from the very people that you would expect to encourage you, because sometimes society will discourage you from chasing your goals, but take us through how you tackled that situation.
Interesting. So actually the chapter in the book is titled Discouragement Packaged as Concern.
Ooh.
So these people come to you.
Wait a minute. Listen, when I tell you purchase this book, I mean it, okay? How? Wow. Say it again.
The chapter is titled Discouragement Packaged as Concern.
Oh my goodness.
So people come to you
I can visualize
saying this statement that look like they are being concerned about you.
Wow.
When it's actually a way of discouraging you. This subchapter is called Discouragement Packaged as Concern. So I was teaching at a school From the time I was now looking for a university place, it was difficult for me to get a place. It was a challenge. Getting admission into university was a challenge. A year after I finished my high school, still not enrolled. Excuses were coming. You are going to find the details in the book. Second year, I eventually get word from my brother that there's a university that is opening doors. It's a new university that's been established, and they had advertised in the newspaper and inviting people to apply. So my brother, because I was now teaching in the raw area somewhere, my brother sees this newspaper cutting, cuts it out, mails it to me. So I'm working somewhere in the raw areas. I receive mail from my brother, and it's exciting. Receiving mail was exciting.
Like, just imagine that the advertisement was in a newspaper.
Yeah.
And the brother had to cut out that advertisement and send it in an envelope. And it arrived.
It arrived, yes.
And she got the info. Like, the way things have changed so much.
Yeah. So people who don't know about receiving mails, it was a time we would receive mails stamped, addressed, exactly, in an airmail envelope.
The effort it also took to communicate like that.
So I was teaching in the raw areas, and then my brother sends this mail to me, and the excitement in receiving the mail. It was in an era where receiving mail was really, really exciting. And the thoughtfulness actually in him having to cut all this and send to me was like very heartwarming. But now I'm opening this envelope. I'm reading this article. That's quite exciting. Remember, I'm now in my second year of looking for a place at university. And out comes this thing, an opportunity. And I'm like, let me not be selfish. I share this news with the other teachers that I was sharing the staff room with. I'm excited. I'm like, guys, there's a university opening. My brother just sent me this clip, and it says that I should apply, attach my. So remember, even the applications were not by email. You would actually write an application letter in pen, photocopy your A-level certificates, ordinary level certificates, get them certified, go to the magistrate court or to the police, get them certified, mail, attach your ID, which is also certified, and then you put them in an envelope and you post. So you have to buy an envelope, big envelope, buy a stamp, and then post. So there was just a lot of administration process. It was a big administrative process.
Wow.
So I'm sharing this news, and people are like, nah. First of all, we've never heard. It was the first time a new university had opened in the country. So they're like,
first time since like the old ones were established.
There was the main university, the University of Zimbabwe. Then there was the National University of Science and Technology. But this was the first time government was opening a university, besides the two that we already knew existed. So people were like, we've never heard that university, because it was new to them. So like, nah, this can't be true, this can't be legitimate. And then they proceeded further to say, even you wasting your papers, your efforts, why don't you?
Imagine.
So people were like on my case. They were all rubbishing, like, there's no way this can be legit. There's no way this can work.
Wow. So this is like just you are even trying to help them.
I'm trying to help.
You're not.
I'm sharing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not keeping it to yourself. You are actually trying to help, and in trying to help, they are trying to bring you down.
Yeah, they're not just saying, no, I'm not interested. They're like, no, even you don't apply, because don't waste your time, don't waste your effort, don't waste your money, you know?
And I wonder now if those people would look at you.
I wish I
would
knew them and
would
see
they
them.
look back to that time and be like, you know what, we could have done this.
You know, people forget.
They do.
People forget. People do you wrong or dirty, they forget. The person who remembers is the person who was on the receiving end most of the time. Yeah. So I don't know if they remember. Maybe they all eventually got their own opportunity elsewhere. Maybe they forgot about this. But for me, as I was just reflecting, I realized people can actually discourage you.
And I can
you just
imagine,
need
as teachers, you're like a community.
Yeah.
So you have a sense of trust and reliance on these people, just as your, as your peers.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people really do rely on their peers and their opinions, but there comes a moment in time where you have to be like, no, I won't listen. I know what I want. I know this is good for me. I don't care what anybody says. And sometimes you may even be shunned for even trying to better yourself, because
Or
people
being
can be
different.
like, yeah, people can be like, yo, you're trying to be better than us, or you're trying to say you know it all. But you just have to leave that all behind and say, I'm going for what I want.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that the situation and environment just makes me that comes to mind when I just think of this situation and environment is people at the same level, possibly same grade, possibly getting the same income. There's a tendency. I don't know whether these people discouraged me because they didn't really want me to launch, or because they didn't really believe that this was a good opportunity, or maybe they thought they couldn't qualify and they discouraged me because they wanted us to remain on the same level. So there's that possibility that they might have discouraged me so that we all remain. So it just makes me realize that in environments when people are on the same level, you need to have your own mindset, individual mindset. Don't always be influenced by a group mentality.
And you're
Because-
always telling me that, truly, like,
Yeah. Don't always be influenced by a group mentality, or let's do this as a groupie. There's a time to work as a team, and there's a time
Yes.
sometimes to step aside and be yourself
Yeah.
and be an individual.
be able to work in a team, but be an individual.
Be an individual. If something is not working for you, be honest with yourself and be true to yourself and say, this is not working for me. Or if you want to do something and your friends who don't want to do it, but you have a conviction that is good for you, be okay with leaving the crowd
Yeah.
and do things on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and I like that you've instilled that in me as well, and I'm able to stand by myself,
Yeah.
and at the same time
Yeah.
in a team when
Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah.
You
So,
know,
so
I'm not dependent
yeah.
on people's opinions, and I can also work with people at the same time, which is like very good life advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now, even taking it back to that I'm going to take it back to that incident and then talk about maybe when you were growing up and I was reinforcing this.
You reinforced it.
Apparently, the road that is less traveled is the road that leads to success. So sometimes when people are doing things in the group, it's because it's easy.
I think in high school, I may not remember verbatim, but I'm sure it was reinforced in me to always be able to stand on my own. I can feel it. I can't remember the words, but I can feel it that when I was sent into boarding school, there was definitely a, you know who you are. You're not gonna be peer pressured into anything.
Yeah.
You're gonna stand on your word, on your value, and that's how you live.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was very,
Yeah.
very, very good advice.
Yeah,
for me.
just believe in yourself. Be okay in being different. Don't be ashamed when everybody else is going on this path and you are convinced this is not the path I want to go. Don't be afraid of being the only one who's
Yeah.
going on their own path. So usually young people are influenced by peer pressure.
Yeah.
So they want to go with the crowds. They want to do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But there's always power in being unique.
There
and
is.
being different.
You can stand out easily.
Yeah, yeah. So that was most of the lesson I used to teach you, whether
You
you
did.
remember it verbatim or not. But
Yeah.
that is what I was
I
like.
remember the
Don't
feeling
be
that-
afraid of being different.
Yes.
Be different.
The knowledge is ingrained.
Yeah. 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 So even with this particular case with the with the teaching community that I was sharing the stuff from with, I didn't mind being the only one who's gonna apply to this university. While everybody else was thinking it's not gonna work, it's not legit, I was like, I don't care. I'm gonna apply. And I also wanted to, like, if my brother had put so much effort, what report am I gonna give to him when he says, did you apply? I'll say, oh, I listened to the teachers who said it's not legit. Really? So I did it also to meet my brother halfway. But still I stood on my own convictions, and I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, and it worked out.
Wow. I love that, you know. Sometimes, like we're saying, stand on your own, but also use that, you know, wanting to make your brother proud, you know, the people that have raised you, the people that have contributed into your life, to prepare you to want to do better for yourself. You know, don't take the things that other people do for you for granted. Use them to say, okay, if someone could believe in me so much, then I should be able to do something, you know, because I know people get a lot of support and they sit on it.
Yeah.
They don't use it in any way. They don't use it as fuel. They don't even regard it, but it's there for you to just take heed or take hold of it and push forward in your life. So whatever you can use to encourage you, actually. Yeah.
Just hold on to any positive thing that you can.
Even
hold on
if
to.
you like, I want to make my mother proud. A lot of people have been successful just from saying, I want to make my mother proud.
True. You just reminded me of the first degree.
Yeah.
This one is for mommy. That was very warm heart for me. I was like,
She screenshotted that Facebook post. I thought I was just being candid and honest, but I didn't realize how...
It touched me so much. I was like,
yeah, because...
You finish your degree, you dedicate, for me, this is for mommy heart.
Looking back at your early life experiences, what are some of the key attributes and skills that helped you to stay afloat?
That's an interesting question. As far back as I can remember, which, as I have said, I can only remember up to when I was 5 years old. I don't know if anybody would remember when they were 3 or 2, I'm not sure. But as far as I can remember when I was 5 years old, that incident of running from these nurses who were going to inject something, the fight, the observing something that you don't want and deciding that I'm going to make a change or I'm going to do something about it. So the willingness to act in a situation where you are not comfortable is an attribute that I see has taken me to, or has helped me to stay afloat in situations that would ordinarily have sunk me.
Yeah.
So, see something, decide you don't want it, act. Find a way out and act on it. And then, the other thing is, do not listen to naysayers. Just putting, what you call earbuds. Just putting earbuds in your ears and blocking the noise and the naysayers.
Block the noise.
If you want something, remember, in a situation where I wanted to go to university and this opportunity has presented myself, the only thing that I was going to lose was envelopes and paper and a bit of my time.
Imagine.
But if I had not done what I did and applied, I was going to lose more. But these people were coming to me looking like they're being very nice and caring, telling me that you're going to lose the cost of a stamp or the cost of an envelope.
What is that cost in today's time?
What is that cost
Very
even
insignificant.
even compared to the degree?
Yeah.
What is that cost?
Exactly.
Actually, now that we talk about this, you cannot not incur a cost. For anything that you want to achieve, there must be some form of cost.
Exactly.
So how can you want to avoid a cost but you want a return?
Exactly.
You must make a sacrifice of some
Wow.
sort. Yeah. So for you to harvest a maize full of crops, you need to put some seed in the ground, and that seed has to die for it to germinate. So there must be some cost for you to get a yield.
That's interesting. The seed actually dies.
Yeah, it must die, and
Wow.
then it will then multiply later.
Wow.
But then you have invested, so you cannot want to get a return without making an investment.
Almost like there's always pain in growth.
Very well put. There is pain. You can't just grow. You can just grow relaxed. You can't just be in a comfortable environment and then expect to flourish. There is supposed to be some form of resistance, some form of
Friction.
yeah. So in this case of this teaching experience, they who had packaged their discouragement as concern came trying to make it seem like they're trying to prevent me incurring a cost. But the cost that I was going to incur was very, very small compared to the reward that was going to come, even if I had incurred that cost. But if I had not had a resolve in me, I was going to say, oh yeah, these guys care for me. Why should I waste my time? Why should I? Yeah.
Wow.
So do not listen to
Standing on
naysayers.
your own.
Yeah. Do not listen to naysayers. Do not listen to naysayers. And then the other lesson that I learned as well is, like we just mentioned now, there is discomfort in growth. Those uncomfortable situations, we need to turn them around. Find yourself in a comfortable situation, don't stay there. Find opportunities to turn it around. So the attributes that I then used to turn my situation around or to stay afloat is realizing that I don't like the situation, I'm going to to change it. I'm going to not stay here. I'm not going to listen to these people. And I'll keep on fighting. Even if it takes more than a year to enroll in university, I am going to keep on looking down.
Wow.
And then I eventually enrolled 2 years later.
You can only fail if you do not try.
Yeah.
If you try, somehow you make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You find a way to. Which is the concept of the memoir, Shooting Through Concrete Walls. We have come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and unpacking this momentous memoir with us. We hope you enjoyed every bit of it, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes as we continue to unpack this and take out the life lessons and encouragement that you can help to apply in your life and use in your life to also make it through whatever you're going through. So thank you, Mommy, for taking us through your book and for the encouragement. You know, a lot of people are benefiting from this for sure. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next video.
Thank you guys for having us. Thank you, love, for this beautiful discussion. And guys, click like, subscribe, comment, and see you in our next video.
Bye.